Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedules to be with us tonight at the Return to School Parent Information Session. As we always do, I would like us to join in prayer. And for those in Red Lake, those who have been evacuated in particular or about to be evacuated, know that our prayers are with you, and we will do our utmost to, in addition to prayer, to try to do whatever you need to help. With that in mind, I'd like everybody, if you would mind, wherever you are, please make the sign of our faith. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Almighty and eternal God, we ask your protection against destroying fire. Fire is so very necessary for our existence, and yet when it gets out of control, it can be more damaging than anything else. Keep our homes and buildings and woods and fields safe from this scourge. Help us always to be most careful in our use of it. Lord, please be with the evacuation, rescue workers, and firefighters and keep them safe as they make heroic efforts in dangerous situations to help those in trouble and control the fire. Lord, please be with everyone who is evacuated and are waiting to be evacuated. Keep them safe and please enable them to return to their homes soon. God bless each and every person affected by forest fires and surround them with your love, protection, and angels. Let them know that there are thousands and even millions in the whole world praying for you and your loved ones. Lord, we give you all the praise and glory forever, and know that even in the darkest hours, you are always with us. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Well, again, thank you, everybody. And I'd like to start with brief introductions before I launch into a preamble, and then we will explain after my preamble the process for asking questions. So Trina, I'll turn it over to you for an introduction, and then I'll resume. I think you're on mute, Trina.
Thanks, Derek. Hi, everybody. My name is Trina Henley, and I'm the Executive Assistant to the Director, and I'm certainly really happy to be with our families tonight.
Thank you so much. Okay. I'm back on, so thanks, Trina. Thank you so much, and Trina, thanks for all the behind-the-scenes work you do, and the in front of the camera work too, to make this a smooth-running event. And Trina will explain, as I said, after my introduction, what the process is for asking questions, and at that time, of course, I'll answer those questions to the best of my ability. And if there are any questions I can't answer, then we will get those answers to you. And so to begin, some of you have asked, do you have a plan? And of course we do have a plan, and as with most boards, these plans are quite lengthy. Our plan will be published next week. We're just going over it right now, finalizing it. It's very similar to plans of most of the 72 publicly funded school boards in the province, because we are all working from the same provincial plan. So there's some localized differences, but I'll start trying to hit the highlights. I have about 25 pages in front of me, but I will, and I have made some notes, so I'll do my best to do this in about 5 minutes, but rest assured, next week the plan will be published, and you will be able to scrutinize that in more detail. So with respect to health and facility, ensuring the safety of students and staff is our top priority. And so we're going to do our best working with the medical health community, especially to limit the spread of COVID-19 in our community while giving the best education, heart, mind, body, and soul that we can. And of course, we do acknowledge, and the government acknowledges, that coming back to school is a risk, but our health professionals have advised us that the benefits do outweigh the risks as long as we abide to the best of our ability the many layers of protections that our health professionals have advised, and we will do that to the greatest extent we can while still delivering a quality education program. So student and staff screening, we'll be sending out various documentation that have been developed by the Northwest Health Unit on screening, and we will always make those available. Those will be posted. So basically, if anybody's feeling unwell, they're to stay home, and we'll have explicit instructions for you from the Northwest Health Unit on what to do if you or your child or your staff member and you are feeling sick. So there'll be a daily self-assessment that you'll be asked to do for and with your children. Staff will be asked to do that also. And of course, staff or students should stay home when they're feeling unwell. If the school calls and asks you to pick up your child, you pick them up as promptly as you can if they develop symptoms they didn't have in the morning, but they have at school. And then following public health directions regarding testing when exhibiting symptoms. And I'll go over those in a bit more detail. And of course, we will have those published and we will forward them as we have been doing. Hand hygiene is also an important preventative measure. So hand sanitizer stations will be placed at all entrances and at various parts around the school. And students will be reminded to regularly wash their hands. Physical distancing, we have so many square feet and we have a full number of students coming back. Incidentally, about half of our parents have answered our survey thus far, and it looks like about 7.8% have indicated they will opt for at-home learning. So that means we have 92.2% of our students that will be coming to school. And so our direction from the ministry is to physically distance to the greatest extent possible. So we'll increase the physical distance of chairs and tables and desks in all rooms. We will promote learning outside as weather permits. And we'll have students facing in the same direction to support respiratory hygiene. Purposeful planning of classroom learning activities with respiratory and hygiene in mind. We have signage to designate routes similar to what you found in grocery stores to try to control traffic flow. Staggering breaks and recesses to the greatest extent we can with the supervision we have. Locker time, staggering that so there's separation. And again, all these things to the greatest extent we can. Respiratory hygiene, we'll be promoting not touching the face, and we'll remind people we're not going to give anybody big trouble for any of these things, but we'll always be there to remind and support, especially the eyes, mouth, and nose. Cover coughs with sneezes with a tissue, sleeve, or elbow. Washing and sanitizing hands after sneezing or blowing nose, those reminders and opportunities will be given, and we will have the necessary cleaning supplies for that hand washing. As you may know, students in grade 4 to 12 are required to wear non-medical or cloth masks indoors in school, including in hallways and during classes. Outdoor times like recess will be used as opportunities to provide students with breaks from wearing masks within their cohorts. And a cohort, if I haven't mentioned before, and I don't believe I have, is a group of students that groups of students we're going to try to keep together and not mix with other students to the greatest extent possible while still delivering a quality education program. Students in K to 3 will be encouraged but not required to wear masks in indoor spaces. And if there are exemptions, they'll be on a case-by-case basis if there are medical reasons why, and we'll seek further direction in those cases from our health professionals on how to adopt other measures to keep things as safe as possible when a student might not be able to wear a mask due to certified medical reasons. And of course, our students with medical conditions, we're working with families, prevalent medical conditions, to find a plan that works the best for them. So, their plan of care document obviously will be revised with the family, with the student to reflect our COVID situation. We have enhanced cleaning protocols, and we are hiring additional custodial staff to implement those enhanced cleaning protocols. So greater cleaning and disinfection. We're following public health advice regarding the type of cleaning and disinfectant products to use. There'll be daily sanitizing for high touch areas like doorknobs, handles, light fixtures, etc. Restrooms will be monitored and cleaned more frequently throughout the day. So those are some of the enhanced cleaning protocols. And of course, our environmental conditions and airflow, we'll try to have windows open whenever we can and ensure our HVAC is working optimally. Drinking fountains and drinking faucets will be disabled. Where we have water bottle filling stations, these will be flushed daily. Sinks that are designated for hand washing only will remain as hand washing only fixtures. And of course, we'll ensure that students have the water that they need, and we encourage students to bring in their water also. And so the purpose of student cohorting, that's to limit the mixing of students to the greatest extent we can. And the guideline is at secondary, for example, with the semestered system, it's tried to limit it to about 100 or less. So that the number of exposures could be reduced, and that will assist with the contact tracing that the health unit will direct us on, and they will perform. And of course, both elementary and secondary students are returning the year in full return. And again, they'll be both secondary and elementary will be scheduled in such a way as to try to minimize contacts. And so I mentioned about the self-screening, and that more information will be coming home, and that will be continually available on our websites and posted. And we'll have what to do if you feel unwell posters and whatnot. Our staff will wear, of course, students grade 4 to 12 will wear masks. Staff also have to wear masks. They'll be wearing, and they also have eye protection if that's required, where physical distancing is not possible, such as where they're working one-on-one closely with a student. So public health, I'll go over a little bit about in the Q&A about contact tracing. With respect to operations, we have to maintain effective daily operations and give a quality educational experience, and that's balanced with that safety. And so coming back to school, there's a risk, and our health practitioners have advised us that it is of greater benefit to have students back, even though there's a bit more risk with respect to COVID as opposed to staying home over a long term. Student belongings brought to school, they'll go home at the end of the day. And there will be some lockers, particularly at secondary, but students will be spaced accordingly. It'll be signed that way. There'll be out to lockers at given times where physical distancing can be maintained. School entries and exits will be maintained. Schools will be closed to visitors. Parents won't be entering the buildings. And the schools will provide further guidance on student entry exit in the welcome messaging, so the designated entrance for your child, for example. And sanitizing stations, of course, are at each designated entrance. Students are asked to bring their own masks from home, but if a student cannot do that, we will ensure we have some masks for those students. Outdoor play structures are still closed to student use. We're trying to figure out ways to clean the equipment daily and have it effective, but we haven't come up with those yet. And families are asked not to use these structures when coming to school and are leaving school at the end of the day. The risks are too high at this point, so we'll keep working on that one. And if there are face-to-face meetings scheduled by appointment, screening will be required and medical masks will be worn. So again, that self-screening, that attestation that you're not ill. Lunch and snacks, elementary students should bring food every day. All waste will go home with students to the greatest extent possible. Water bottles, food, and utensils may not be shared. I know we always teach to share, but in a COVID situation, it's less of a risk if we don't share in that case, and we'll explain that to students. In addition, I know you will too. Elementary students who go home for lunch will follow school processes. No other students will leave for lunch. Students should bring a refillable water bottle. So lates and attendance will be similar. Please let us know. Staff will greet students, even if, particularly those who may be late, and they will be received at the school. Food programs, particularly for students who require those, will continue following all the health protocols. All surfaces, bins, and containers for food distribution, of course, will be disinfected prior to and after use. Food programs, and we will be working with the health unit to see how we can maintain food programs and cafeteria services in a safe way. Commercial food deliveries, again, that's the same. We will be working with the health unit to see how we can do that in a safe way. Transportation, the Transportation Consortium will have further information, but I can tell you the use of non-medical masks for students in grade 4 to 12 are required on school vehicles. Students in K to 3 are encouraged. Parents are asked to consider walking, wheeling to school instead of driving, and promoting, trying to maintain social distancing, of course. And the bus protocols, again, will be shared with families via our Transportation Consortium. And of course, if students are feeling ill, they shouldn't come to school. They should also not ride the bus, of course. Before and after school programs, they're operating as at the discretion of the child care operator, and they are. And we're trying to match before and after school cohorts to school cohorts where possible. We are developing processes to adhere to social distancing in cohorts with fire drills, hold and secure, lockdown, school evacuation, bomb threat drills, and we'll be working with, for example, the fire chief to ensure we adhere to all the fire safety, but do social distancing in cohorts to the greatest extent we can while still doing those very important drills. And with respect to learning, I know I'm going more than 5 minutes. There's a lot here. I apologize, but we've asked families to fill out an intent to return. As I mentioned, about 7.8% have indicated families would like distance learning, at-home learning that's teacher directed, and so we will provide for that. If you have decided that your child will be engaging in online learning at home, please do contact your school principal to let them know, because right now we're in the process of rejuggling classes and assigning staff where we need to, because a teacher will be assigned to a virtual class, for example. But since teachers are teaching every day, they won't be doing both virtual and in person. There'll be a different teacher assigned for your student, and they will follow the expectations in a similar way to the grade that's happening at school in person. And of course, our students with special needs, our schools will continue to support students with special education needs who may require additional transition time, for example. We do have a transition program for some students, particularly students who may have autism spectrum disorder, for example. And changes in the school environment will be considered when reviewing and updating IEPs to ensure continued access and continued implementation of the accommodations and modifications that are indicated in the IEP. So we have a full return in-person instructional model, and as of now, as I mentioned, we have the vast majority of our students will be engaging in the in-person instructional model. And for those engaging in the distance learning instructional model, the province is releasing common expectations. So there'll be a lot more synchronous learning, they call it, that face-to-face through technology learning, live learning, than you may have experienced in the between March break and the end of June. But there will be what they call a policy and procedure memorandum for all 72 publicly funded school boards to follow, and that will be coming out soon. So we'll have further details that we'll pass on to you. So I could go a lot more, but I think that's hit a lot of the we have the same learning management systems and instructional platforms. So Google Classroom primarily for elementary, but Microsoft Teams may be used in both elementary and secondary, and Brightspace may also be used in the secondary level. And so these are all robust and licensed and secure platforms. Welcome and orientation events. You'll receive information from your schools, and of course, given the restrictions for large group events, we won't be able to have those in person, but there will be virtual opportunities. Excursions, anything that takes kids out on a bus other than their trip back to and from school, we won't be doing. There may be some walking excursions because getting outside into that safer environment to the outdoor classroom will be encouraged. Inter-school athletics, we received information at the secondary level that the championships and whatnot for the fall season have been canceled, and we will do physical activity safely, as we will with music and other specialties that may have some additional considerations. The volunteer hour requirement for graduation. Graduating students will still need to meet that and can do so virtually, and so students will be receiving more information about how to do that. And of course, well-being, our mental health team has worked very hard in School Mental Health Ontario, and we will have continued. I know our team has sent out a lot of information, and we will continue to send out information because, remember, safety is our priority, both physical and our mental safety and mental health. And so we'll continue to support with technology, particularly for our at-home learners. And I will pause there. Oh, I won't pause, but I will. I know you'll still have a lot of questions, but I know there's some other questions that I want to deal with. So I know many will ask, what will happen if the class must isolate in the case of a confirmed case in the class? So the Northwestern Health Unit will provide direction to the principal. The board will follow the provincial outbreak protocol for informing parents. In most cases, we anticipate that, again, the Northwest Health Unit will investigate and will advise every individual that they deem to be impacted and what instructions to take. And so, again, we follow the lead of the Northwest Health Unit. So again, if there's a positive COVID-19 test in the school, the Northwestern Health Unit will contact the positive case and gather details about their contacts. A contact is defined as someone who has spent at least 15 minutes within 2 meters of a confirmed case. The Northwest Health Unit will direct the positive case to self-isolate and not return to school until they are no longer able to spread the virus, and that means cleared by the Northwest Health Unit to return. And the Northwest Health Unit is responsible for completing contact tracing for each positive case. Contact tracing is the process of identifying, assessing, and managing people who have been exposed to a disease to prevent further transmission. If school level tracing is required, the Northwestern Health Unit will contact the school principal for additional details about contacts and to advise the school on enhanced cleaning measures. The Northwest Health Unit will connect with everyone identified as a contact and will provide each with directions. And the school principal has several responsibilities: alerting the Northwest Health Unit if someone is absent from school due to a reportable disease like COVID, notifying the Northwest Health Unit, maintaining a system to quickly and accurately collate the contacts. So we will assist the Northwest Health Unit in getting the information they need. So if they request the information, we are legally obligated and morally obligated, and we will provide it. And so then we will, on the advice of the Northwest Health Unit, exclude anyone with any symptoms of the illness from entering or attending school. And so there is, we will publish the Northwest Health Unit document on communicable disease reporting as it does apply to COVID. And that is, yeah, I know I've got a lot longer than 5 minutes, but I will certainly be with you to take all the questions. I hope that answers a few of them, but if it hasn't, then we welcome all questions, and I will call on Trina now to explain the process, and then I will answer everything to the best of my ability. Go ahead, Trina, thank you.
Thanks, Derek. Okay, so the next part of the session is the Q&A session. It's one of the best parts of the session because it's really interactive. Derek and I have done these similar parent sessions a few times now, so for anyone who's been here with us before, you know what to expect, but for anybody who's new and just joining us tonight, welcome, and I will go through what to expect for the live Q&A chat. So if you're comfortable, we certainly encourage you to use your first name to ask questions, but we understand that not everybody is comfortable, and you can certainly choose to remain anonymous. To ask a question, click on the question mark box in the upper right corner of your screen, and that will open the live event Q&A chat window, and in that window you can type your questions to us. So Derek does want to give you as much time as possible to ask your questions, and he's going to answer as many questions as he can tonight. So I will be reading the questions out loud for Derek one at a time, and then Derek will take time to respond to the question. Derek is going to, if he doesn't have the answer tonight, we're going to have a process where we can take down the questions that we don't have an answer for, and we may incorporate that into our frequently asked questions and respond back to parents with the answer. Something to note is that when you type a question and you ask the question, it won't automatically show up in the window because we're holding them in a queue, so Derek can answer them one at a time and address each one. Another thing that I will be doing is I'm going to be trying to monitor for similar questions, and I'll bundle them together and filter them out as well if they've already been answered by Derek. So to see the questions from the entire group once they have been answered and processed and moved over, you just click on the featured button. And one of the things that Derek and I have learned from doing these sessions is it's best if you can make your questions as short and concise as possible. And if you have a really long question, we ask that you could just break it into multi-parts for us. That would be so helpful, and we'd appreciate that. So I'm going to go ahead and get ready with the first question. It's actually from one of our parents from Red Lake. So I'm just going to send Derek back to live. And if you're ready, Derek, I'm going to ask you your first question.
Okay, Trina, please go ahead.
Okay, so our first question comes to us from Lisa. She is one of our parents who has been recently evacuated from Red Lake. And she said she's a very active parent. We really appreciate Lisa. She has been very active with us in social media. And so Lisa's question is, her main concerns are, what are the key dates for re-entry into school? For example, if I've chosen for my child to have remote learning, are there some key milestone dates that we need to achieve to be able to have our kids come back to school?
Thanks, Lisa, and great question. And of course, we are thinking of you. And if you need anything, you know that everybody will try our best to help because you know, that could be any of us, and our hearts go out to you. It's certainly hard to have to evacuate your home, but thank you for that excellent question. Some boards are saying there are only a couple of entry points in the year, and they can do that beginning of September, for example, or the beginning of February, which is mid-year, the turn of the semester. We're going to do our best to have multiple entry points, but please understand that that will be difficult. So if a parent, for example, starts off with at-home learning and decides that they want face-to-face at school learning, they will notify the school principal, and then the school principal will notify me and us, other administration, and we will do our best to change things so your child can make a safe entry for everyone at the school as soon as possible. So there may be a delay. I can't say it will be the next day, or sometimes maybe even not the next week, but we will do it as quickly as we can. And likewise, if a parent chooses to send their children to school and wishes to engage in at-home learning, there again may be a delay because there may be reassigning of staff, for example, juggling of classes. We'll try to do it as less often as possible so as to not disrupt. And we do ask, I know you're taking all this all very seriously, but we do ask for your patience in those processes. So if you understand there's many reasons why a change may be necessary, and we will deal with them on a case-by-case basis, but there may be a wait to facilitate the change. So thank you, Lisa. Great question. And again, we will keep praying for you and for all those that are displaced right now.
Okay, so Lisa actually had a multi-part question. So the second part of Lisa's question is, if I've chosen to have a remote learning for my child, is somebody local, board level, or provincial going to be teaching them? Like, who's going to be teaching them through remote learning?
Right. It will be a Kenora Catholic teacher that is teaching, that is the remote learning teacher. So that's what the situation will be. Although the teacher may refer to your student, your child, to other resources that may be available to supplement that instruction. And as I mentioned before, there will be a policy procedure memoranda released by the ministry with common details for all 72 boards around at-home learning, and we will release those as soon as we get them. But by and large, it will look similar to what it did from March break to the end of June, but I think you'll see much more consistency with the synchronous part, much more frequent live check-ins, as it were. Although there'll be some non-synchronous, some assigned work also, because for both. But the minutes of instruction will be maintained similarly to what they are face-to-face. And the assessment, instruction, and reporting, the requirements will be the same for at-home and online, face-to-face and at-home learning. So again, I know I went a little farther than your question asked, Lisa, but I just wanted to give you that information too. So thank you again.
Okay, Derek, this next question has been asked to us in multiple different ways, through email, through our website, on our social media sites. The parents that are choosing to have remote learning, they would like to know a little bit more about what that's going to look like. And I know you touched base on that tonight, but if you wouldn't mind just going over that again, I think that would be helpful. Sure.
As I mentioned, we'll get further details, but the teacher will be using one of the platforms, Microsoft Teams or Google Classroom or Brightspace, to connect and engage with students face-to-face with live audio, video, as is possible. And there will be some offline activities. Students may be given work similar to how they get homework to do, and teachers, of course, will be assessing and evaluating that work and eventually reporting on it as they normally would. And so students will require devices. If that is not possible, if you live in a remote area, we'll do everything we can to do that, or there might be delivery and pickup of paperwork if that type of connectivity is just not possible where you live. So thank you for that question.
Okay, so the next question is coming from an anonymous partner. For the first day of school, many of our schools have all of our students come in and they all go to the gymnasium. Is that process still going to be happening this year?
Unfortunately, not at the start of the year. There will not be mass gatherings. Students will be kept in their cohorts to the greatest extent possible. So each school will release the first day process for you know, the handoff, as it were, for going into the school. So again, there won't be that mass gathering, but as each school's physical setup is different, those specific details will be released by the school, and you'll know exactly what to do on that first day.
Okay, so another anonymous parent wants to know if there's a confirmed case of COVID in their child's class, will the parents be notified?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that, please, Trina?
Sorry, I published it already, Derek. The parent asked if there's a confirmed case with a student that has COVID in a class, will the parents be notified that there's a confirmed case of COVID in their child's class?
And as I mentioned, we'll be taking our direction from the health unit on those. We will look after the education piece, and we will take our cues from the health unit on the health piece. So that's a question that we will take down and we will get the most up-to-date answer from our health unit regarding how the community will be notified when there's a case. Certainly those affected will be notified, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, as I was explaining the Northwest Health Unit procedures, but that is certainly, we'll get direction from the health unit on that.
Okay, so the next question is coming from an anonymous viewer. In terms of class sizes, there appears to be much discrepancy. Can you go over the class size protocols and perhaps the cohorting?
Sure, class sizes will be similar to what they've been any other year. So as far as cohorting in elementary, the students that they'll have their class of, you know, it could be 20, it could be 29, it could be 32, and they will stay with that group to the largest extent possible for as long as the medical advice continues. At secondary, we have a semestered model, so students will be cohorted as much as possible, but students do take different courses, so that there'll be students at secondary from 9 to 12 will be with a larger cohort due to the nature of the high school system, the semestered system. So they'll have their 4 courses per semester, and but we'll try to have those groups be as homogeneous as possible with respect to having different students. So thank you for that excellent question.
Okay, so your next question is, will there be an isolation period for students who travel out of province?
That will be a health unit question. And we will certainly get that up-to-date answer, because I do not have that answer at this point. And of course that advice can change depending, I imagine, depending on the rates, but I won't, I'm a doctor, but I'm a doctor of education, so I won't delve into the medical realm, but that's one we will get further clarification closer to the start of school to get the most up-to-date information on that.
Okay, so your next question, how will a return to school be determined, assessed after staying home sick? If a child stays home because of a fever or cough, for example, but then feels better, can they return based on their own assessment, or do they need to have a negative COVID test? Is that required?
That will be on advice of the health unit, so we can help seek that advice. So I see this isn't a confirmed COVID case, so my best answer, and we'll reconfirm closer to the date based on the latest advice, but if a student is sick and it's not determined to be COVID, then when they feel better, you would return them to school as they regularly do. But we'll get advice from the health unit. But generally, if students are sick, we will do our best to notify the health unit, and they will determine whether an investigation needs to be done and give us direction about return to school.
Okay, so your next question is from somebody who's very interested in sports. So they want to know, are there going to be no more school sports, or will there still be some team sports but no games or playoffs?
Again, there will be no games or playoffs and no travel to other schools and whatnot, but we will do our best. We do have a plan that we're consulting with the Northwest Health Unit on around intramurals and phys ed classes, and we will do physical activity to the greatest extent possible while keeping as safe as we can based on the advice we receive.
Okay, so the next question is, when can kids get into St. Thomas Aquinas High School to change their classes that were given to them when they were given incorrectly?
So the school will be releasing that information shortly about what students do in those situations.
All right, so this next one is very similar to the question at the very beginning that Lisa had when she was asking about re-entry timelines, but this person is asking again, can we switch from in-person to online if we change our minds?
And as I said before, we'll assess that on a case-by-case basis, do our best to have multiple entry points, but there may be a wait, and we're hoping that you know, people aren't doing it frequently. Like if you start out with one and say, no, you know, I know more about this, I'm more comfortable with this, I'd like to go with the other, then we'll do our best. But please understand that it takes a massive amount of organization to make these changes, and we can't make them quickly because we have to keep everybody safe and do it in an effective way. So the answer is yes, but it may take some time.
Okay, here comes your next question. It's from an anonymous viewer. At times, there are large discrepancies in class sizes. For example, at St. Thomas Aquinas High School, French immersion classes are significantly smaller. Will consideration be given to restructuring these classes to relieve pressure elsewhere and make class size more equitable?
We'll do our best, but within the subject areas that there are, as we always do. But we won't be doing anything dramatically different because class sizes have been mandated to be the same as they always are. We're just trying to use those layered health approaches to make it as safe as possible.
Okay, so your next question, who will enforce physical distancing in class and out of class?
Staff, other students will all be doing our best to try to remind folks and maintain physical distancing all the time to the greatest extent possible. And we'll ask everybody to be vigilant about that. If kids make mistakes and forget, and we're not going to be suspending kids and whatnot, but we're asking everybody to do their best to physically distance to the greatest extent possible all the time.
Okay, your next question is coming from Katie, and she asks, will grade 7 students not have access to lockers this fall? If so, will every student's belongings be kept in their classrooms?
So again, we're asking students, and thank you, Katie, it's a great question. We're asking students to take their belongings home with them every night to the greatest extent possible. You'll receive more information from TA, or if you're at St. John's, from St. John's about lockers and access to lockers. But belongings will not be kept in the classrooms because we have to keep the maximum amount of space in the classrooms so we can physically distance to the greatest extent possible. So you'll receive more information from your classroom teacher, from the school, but by and large, as I said, student belongings will have to be taken with you every day to the greatest extent possible to maintain that space in the classroom that we'll need to do the maximum physical distancing. So thanks, Katie, it's a great question.
Okay, Derek, the next question, I can give you a hand with answering. It says, do I have to pre-register for remote learning? Where do I do that? And so, yes, absolutely. We're asking for all of our families to please fill out our remote learning survey. It's available until August 17th. The link to the survey was emailed to all families. It's also available on our board website, every single school website. It's available on our Facebook site, every single school Facebook site. It was emailed, and we are going to do a reminder on Friday by email. We're also going to do a reminder on Monday. The deadline is August 17th. Do you have anything else you want to add about the survey, Derek? We're at about 50%.
Yeah, we do have about 50%. As I mentioned, about 7.8% have said they would want remote learning. It also is a good idea to let your principal know also, so we can get started as quickly as possible. So just so nobody's missed, it's not a big number, so we would appreciate knowing that as soon as you know it, as soon as you've made that decision.
Okay, so the next question is coming to you from Lee. Is there anything different besides bringing and wearing a mask for casual staff during the pandemic?
During the 3 PD days, all staff will receive health and safety training, but definitely a mask will be provided to all staff, and there will be other procedures and whatnot you know, for example, although folks are doing self-screening, we'll just give reminders on what to watch for if a student becomes sick during the day, for example. So there'll be other training such as that, enhanced hand washing protocols, the cleaning. So there'll be a lot of information that all staff, casual, permanent, part-time, will be receiving prior to the start of school. So thank you for that excellent question.
Okay, so your next question is from an anonymous viewer. Is there any option for a student to attend part-time in person and part-time online?
And I was asked that question this afternoon, and I've been asked that question before. At this point in our region, the ministry has told us that we have two options. We have a full attendance at school or an online at-home experience. So there is not an option at this point to attend part-time in person and part-time online. But if we go to that hybrid model, that would be ordered by the Minister of Education, and we would move to that. So at this point, we either have full-time at school, 5 days a week, regular school days, or online. The only, yeah, that is the answer at this point. You may have heard of there are about 24 boards in the province, largely very large boards with very large high schools that have this part-time in person and part-time online, and that's because of their great size and the prevalence of COVID in their communities. That Northwestern Ontario has not been designated as such, so that is not an option right now. Thanks for that great question that I know many people have.
Okay, so your next question is from a parent named Patrick. What size would it be a cohort for SK students? For example, how many students would be in a room?
So thank you, Patrick. And as I mentioned, class sizes will be the same as they ever were. So what you've experienced in the past, there may be some that are 24, some 26, some 29. So it will vary. We will do our best to keep them small, but we do not have additional staffing and additional space to decrease our class sizes.
Okay, your next question is from an anonymous viewer. Given that kids will be expected to stay home with any illness symptoms, there will be a lot more sick days. Will at-home learning be available for kids who have to stay home sick?
As with when a child is regularly absent when they're attending face-to-face, teachers will send assigned work home and you know, may as their practice check in as they're able, but it will be a similar experience to when a child is sick during conventional schooling. So thank you. That was a great question and well worded too.
Okay, this next one is of a similar vein. It's from an anonymous viewer. My daughter suffers from extreme allergies and has a runny nose, stuffy nose in the fall. As one of the symptoms of COVID-19, am I to keep her home as she struggles through the fall?
So in those situations, I'd encourage you to get advice from the health unit or your medical practitioner, and we will receive that advice on those things. And so that's where you know, a medical practitioner can explain the situation, and if it is the allergies, there may be steps that we can take to help your student at school in light of COVID, but they wouldn't necessarily, depending on what the advice, we'd follow the advice of the medical professional.
Okay, Derek, your next question is from Alexis. My children are in grades 2 and 4. For the online learning option, how will that work? Will they have a schedule of times to be online or fully independent? Can you please describe what a day might look like for students who are taking the online learning?
So they won't be online all the time, but they won't be fully independent all the time. It will be a mix of that. As I said, the ministry is sending out common guidelines for all school boards, and we are hoping to get that very soon and send that out very soon. But so there will be some time scheduled, and there will be some time scheduled for independent work also.
Okay, this is a really good question from an anonymous viewer. Is the high school timetable normal, or are you going to quadmesters like some other boards?
As a great question, and I appreciate being able to reiterate this. We are staying with a semestered system, 4 courses per semester. So we are not going to quadmesters like some other boards. Some boards are doing semesters, some boards are doing full year learning, some boards are doing quadmesters. Some are even trying these octomesters. So if you can imagine, you'd be doing 1 course for 110 hours over, what would that be, a month and a quarter, so 5-6 weeks. But we are given the size, our high school is quite small, and on the advice from the Northwest Health Unit, we are following that advice with those layered protections, and we will be able to administer a semestered program in as safe way as possible. Well, thanks, great question.
Okay, next one. Are there any plans to automate high-touch areas, for example, bathroom taps, soap dispensers, paper towel dispensers, and doors?
And to the extent we can, we will implement any of these things. We don't have very much extra funding to do this with, but our plant maintenance department has instituted a number of changes and to try to keep things as safe as possible, but not necessarily. But if we have that opportunity, we would take it.
Okay, another question about COVID. If a family member is exhibiting any COVID symptoms, can I assume that all of the children need to stay home until a negative test is received? Again,
I'm not a medical practitioner, so we'll be receiving advice from the health unit on those, because an investigation and communication would be in order, and each person affected would be receiving specific direction on what they should and shouldn't do, and our schools will adhere to that those directions. So thank you, great question.
Okay, here comes a childcare question from an anonymous partner. I understand that KCL daycares still plan to charge parents if they keep their children home sick. Do you know if this will also be the case for KCL after-school programs?
Okay, I'm sorry, could you read that again? Again, I'm trying to trying to read, but I'm reading the wrong ones.
No problem. I understand that KCL daycares still plan to charge parents if they keep their children home sick. Do you know if this will also be the case for KCL after-school programs?
I do not know, so I would encourage you to contact KCL with respect to that. But thank you for the question.
Okay, next question. Will student staff be expected to stay home from school when they are exhibiting any symptoms of any illness?
Yes, if you are sick, stay home. That is the direction from our medical practitioners.
Here comes a great question from a French immersion parent. If my child is in French immersion and we choose to learn remotely, will they still be taught in French?
And yes, they will be, to the extent we can, with the staff we can, they will receive, again, the program as closely as possible to what they would receive at school.
Okay, here's a question from Charlotte. Will each school have a cohort of supply staff?
Not necessarily. We will try to have supply staff stick to as few schools as possible, but given the fact that we regularly do have limited numbers, although we are advertising, always trying to hire, we will try to limit it, but it is possible that that supply staff will be working at multiple schools.
Okay, so this question is from an anonymous viewer. Will there be extra help available if my child needs it when doing remote learning?
Absolutely. There are many provincial helps. We'll continue to keep a robust resource bank on our school website. There are provincial helps, and there'll also be helps available, particularly for those online learners, and that information will be provided by your child's assigned teacher.
Okay, Derek, here comes a longer question. Okay, so it says, hi, to bank off the question about entry dates, I'm an elementary teacher, and I've seen many parents posting online that their plans consist of registering their child for in-person learning, but then keeping them at home for the first 3 weeks or so, and then having them attend intermittently depending on COVID statistics. Could you please speak to what that means for assessment or expectations upon the classroom teacher to fill in missed learning? My goal as a teacher is to maintain some online presence, but not be online all the time, as students shouldn't be bombarded with screen time if they're in person.
So although I respect parents' choices, from an educational standpoint, this would be very difficult. A student would have a lot of problems missing that kind of school and would really have trouble keeping up, because we're not offering a hybrid model. It's at school or at home. So we'll do our best, but if that is the plan and choice, then from an educational standpoint, that will be very difficult for the student, and I would not recommend it, because the learning will not be as good, and because we do not have that hybrid model available.
Okay, your next question is, will one teacher be assigned to a class?
And I'm not, so I'm assuming you're talking about itinerant teachers like French teachers and whatnot, so I'm not sure. So if I don't answer it, please ask it in another way, but there will be we're going to limit that as much as we can. But for example, if your child's in core French, they have their regular home form teacher, the teacher will leave the class as normal, and the French teacher will come in, and they will have a mask, and they will do the same thing the classroom teacher does, maintain as much physical distance as possible and follow the other layered safety approaches. So there will be, students will still have multiple teachers, but we will limit that to the greatest extent possible, and students will keep within their cohorts to the greatest extent possible. So thank you, that's a great question, but if I didn't answer that properly, please do ask in another way.
Okay, so how will students be able to physically distance if class sizes are the same as previous years?
So the direction for the Ministry of Education is to do physical distancing to the maximum extent possible. So we don't have a specific 1 meter, 2 meter guideline necessarily. So we're going to have the classroom set up to have the maximum distancing we can at all times, but it won't necessarily be 1 meter or 2 meters all the time, but we will do our best to maximize it all the time. So thank you, that's a great question again.
Next question is from an anonymous parent. Will the students still be able to get their phys ed credit?
Yes, they certainly will. Maybe modified somewhat, as would, classes like music classes. Some other classes will have to make some considerations, but certainly they will.
Okay, this question is anonymous. Will children be required to keep their distance from their peers? Will socializing and play be allowed?
So we're going to be asking students to maintain physical distancing to the greatest extent possible, but we realize kids are kids, and so, but we will try to maintain distancing as much as possible. And I know it is a difficult situation, but we will do every safety recommendation to the greatest extent practical and possible, including distancing.
Okay, here comes a follow-up question. It's a follow-up regarding cohorting. What about grade 7-8 students? What will cohorting look like? Will most subjects be taught by the same teacher?
Yes. We in grade 7-8 will be limiting so there will be more than one teacher, but we'll limit it as much as possible. So there won't be as much of the rotary as would have happened in the past in grade 7 and 8.
Okay, this next question is from Stephen. Will there be a mask policy for students with clear expectations of when to wear masks and protocol for when students may inappropriately not wear their masks?
Thank you, Stephen, and again, very well worded, and I love the word doff too, very dignified. So there certainly is a mask policy for students. Students grade 4 to 12 and staff are to wear masks at all times, but we do recognize there may be times of distress where a student would tell the staff member that I need to take off my mask for a minute, they'll be given, at least 2 meters physical distance to do so, and then they will be invited to put on their mask and return to, regular activity. At recess, students will not have to wear masks outside at recess. We will still encourage distancing, but they can get a break there, and of course they will have to take their mask off when they're eating lunch, for example. So there will be some breaks, and if someone is in distress, then students will be able to establish the distance, the 2 meter distance they'll need to take a break until such time as they can get their mask back on and resume regular activities.
Okay, Derek, your next question is from Marge. She has a 2-part question, so I'm going to ask you the first part and then let you answer it, and then I'll ask you the second part. So Marge says, first of all, I would like to say thank you for holding this session. I have so many questions, but I will keep it to 2 for right now. My first question has to do with students in their more senior years at high school. Will opting for at-home learning be a hindrance for academic achievement and for moving on to post-secondary education?
Okay, I'll deal with that one first. So Marge, great question, and like I said, we all try to be straight shooters and be very honest. Online learning, distance learning, right before COVID, 5% of our high school students provincially would do an online course. Online learning is difficult, and because face-to-face learning is superior, and I wouldn't. That is a fact. That being said, we will do our best using technology to make online learning as good as it can be. So, is it a hindrance for academic achievement? It'll make it more difficult, but we'll do everything we can to mitigate and eliminate those hindrances, as it were. But for moving on to post-secondary education, the assessment, the evaluation, the reporting will be similar. So I know I'm kind of talking out of both sides of my mouth, but we will mitigate that. But I can't in good conscience tell somebody, and I'm not trying to sell parents on this. Parents will balance what is best for kids, and we will do our utmost. But I would not stand here and say that at-home online learning is equal to face-to-face learning from an academic standpoint. But we will do our best to get it as close as possible. So Marge, great question, and maybe not the answer you were anticipating, but I know our professional educators will move heaven and earth to try to give the best quality at-home online learning that's possible. And so the next question, Trina?
Yep. Okay, so Marge's second part of her question is, how will the board ensure that students are getting the required number of hours so they can earn their French Immersion diploma?
So it will be the same number of hours, whether it's online or in person. So the 110 hours for courses and the necessary hours for French will be provided. And so they'll still be able to get that even if they're solely online.
Okay, so your next question is from Katie. Are you planning a staggered start for St. Thomas Aquinas High School? For example, only grade 7 and 8s will come in the morning of the 3rd, September 3rd, and then 9 to 12s in the afternoon?
No, we're not, although the entry to the school may be staggered to maintain distancing on that morning. So thanks, Katie. That is a great question, and I appreciate being able to clarify that.
Okay, your next question is from Alexis. My student will be entering grade 4. Will they still receive a Chromebook if they do online learning?
And we will work with parents to ensure that students who are doing online learning have the equipment they need. Some students may use their own at-home equipment, and if that's not possible, we will do everything we can do, as we did from March to June, to ensure students have the equipment they need, including, for example, Chromebooks to engage in online learning if that's selected.
Okay, your next question is about hockey. Do you anticipate a return of the hockey academy for elementary students in the fall?
We're currently, as with all physical activities, we are in consultation with the Northwest Health Unit, and we will ask about that. It probably won't come in right away if we can do it safely, but we will get back to everybody on that question and on those types of activities based on the most current information as we get closer to the start of school.
Okay, your next question is from Rachel. For siblings in different schools or the same, if one is sick, do we keep them all home even if they have no symptoms?
And that's a question that I know Dr. Young-Hoon will be on tomorrow at 1, I believe, if I'm correct, will be able to answer those types of questions. I do know if a student has symptoms, they should be kept home, and if students don't, I would be comfortable with the health unit answering that, but I do know the direction we have. If a student is sick, they should be home. So we'll get more clarification on that, and that's a great question we can ask our partners at the health unit.
All right, next question. Say we decide to do online learning for children. Would there be an option for them to attend for certain classes to receive extra help, which the parent cannot provide, for example, French?
As I mentioned, this is an either-or situation. We're not doing a hybrid situation, so students are all either full-time face-to-face learning or full-time online learning. There's not an option for the hybrid model.
Okay, next question. Will a guidance counselor be available for my child when doing remote learning?
The services that your child would normally have will be available to the group. They may look a little different, of course, but they'll be available for our online learners as well as our face-to-face learners.
Next question. Can we ensure that parents have contact with teachers to ensure students are still getting the education needed even at home learning?
Well, certainly there'll be a teacher assigned to your student, and that teacher will be the gateway person, of course, for all contact. And if other teachers need to be engaged, that teacher would be the primary contact point. But certainly a Kenora Catholic teacher will be working with your child online at home.
Here comes a really good question. What will happen if my child, who's in grade 4 to 12, refuses to wear a mask?
Well, as with any refusal of students, we will work with the child, we'll work with the family to find out why. But if it just comes to the student just won't wear a mask and there's no medical reason, then the student will have to go to online learning because masks for grade 4 to 12 are mandatory. So thank you. That is a tough question, but a great question.
Okay, next question. If my child is required to isolate, will they have access to synchronous learning, or will someone be in touch to distribute work?
The latter, if they're required to isolate, they will be just as a student when they're sick from regular school, work will be sent home, provided for them. There may be some, as per the teacher's regular practice, there may be some online, but that you would have experienced that when we were in a regular school situation too. So great question. Thank you.
Here comes another good one. Will the school start and end times change to reflect the student movement in the entranceways?
We are going to do our utmost, and we are mandated by the ministry to maintain the same number of hours of instruction. So initially with organization, we might, everybody might be a little late getting going, but as quickly as possible, we'll get to an efficient and safe system. So our start and end times are as they're supposed to be. So thank you.
Next question. Will you notify the health unit every time a child stays home sick to ensure the health unit can assess for COVID risk? And
I will review, before we're done tonight, I will review all the health unit procedures again, so that's clear. I'll give the principal responsibilities and the health unit responsibilities as the Northwest Health Unit has provided them to us, and that will cover those because I don't want to misspeak without them right in front of me. So thank you for that question.
Next question. If my child requires a daily nursing visit, will the LIN nurses be allowed into the school?
So for those necessary functions, those are some that may be. And for example, our mental health team, although they'll try to work remotely to the greatest extent possible, there may be instances where the need outweighs and will mitigate those risks. So the LIN nurses would be the same. If that need is great in that way, then certainly they will be allowed into the school following those layered approaches, of course.
Okay, next question. Does our board have a confirmed nurse to assist with screening and procedures?
So the province does intend to hire 500 for the entire province, and that's for 2 million students. So our board will have a shared nurse at some point. That hasn't been announced to us at this point, in addition to the Northwest Health Unit staff that already do assist our many schools in the region. So there is not a confirmed nurse at this point, and our board may be sharing that same person with other boards too. So great question, and thanks for letting me expand on that.
Next question, will remote learning meet French immersion requirements?
And yes, remote learning will meet French immersion requirements.
Lots of questions tonight about cohorting, so this is another one. You mentioned that you would be following 2 semesters with 4 courses in each semester for grades 9 to 12. The Kuwait and Patricia District School Board has said they will be doing quadmesters to keep small cohorts. Why have you not considered this?
We will keep our cohorts as small as possible. Our school is small enough that we can maintain a semestered system and limit the numbers, and we will try to keep the cohorts together as closely as possible. I believe the semestered approach is a better approach, and the benefits of the semestered approach educationally are much greater, and we can still maintain the level of safety we need to in that. I believe quadmesters, and I don't want to speak ill about any board that selected them, but I believe it'll be very difficult from an educational standpoint.
Okay, next question. Does the school food programs include the hot lunch program?
We will, again, in consultation with the Northwest Health Unit, we will try to maintain our food programs, including hot lunch. It may not start right away, but we will do our best to find a way to maintain a semblance of that hot lunch program.
Okay, next question. Given many of the symptoms of COVID mimic those of the common cold, how will an outbreak during cold and flu season be dealt with? Will all students and teachers showing symptoms be expected to stay home, or will presence or lack thereof, fever, be the determining factor?
That's a great question for the Northwest Health Unit, and I will review the Northwest Health Unit guidelines. But in these situations, when the Northwest Health Unit is notified, they will investigate and advise everybody affected of what they should and shouldn't do. And we will of course follow that. So not necessarily, but it depends on what the investigation reveals and what the advice of the Northwest Health Unit is.
Okay, your next question is from Lacey. It's a 2-part question, Derek, so I'm going to ask you the first one and then let you answer, and then I will proceed with the second part. Is there a date for when the Northwestern Health Unit will be releasing rules and guidelines for if a student becomes ill?
And again, the Northwest Health Unit has a large amount of information on their website. We will continue to repost that information. And so there are those guidelines, but the investigation will reveal, like it's not so cut and dried from what I understand, but I will allow the Northwest Health Unit to provide those more specific answers. And we will continue to post and send along all of the information the Northwest Health Unit gives us. And so I believe there's a part 2 also, Trina, and thank you, Lacey, great question.
Yes, part 2 from Lacey is there any way to get priority COVID testing for students? As a working parent, simply waiting for an appointment for testing is precious time away from work, as well as students away from the classroom.
Again, that COVID testing is not my bailiwick, and schools will not, we will certainly work with the health unit as they request, but that is certainly a health unit question about testing.
Okay, next question, it's about masks. Are masks being provided to students as well?
We are not receiving enough masks. There's not enough masks available for every student, so we're asking students to use their own cloth masks they have at home. But if students are unable to do that, we will ensure they have a mask when they're at school. But we do have limited supply, and so we will do our absolute best with that, but we do ask for help for students to wear their masks from home.
Next question, also about masks. How many times will staff be expected to change their masks during the day?
Well, that'll be up to the staff member. You know, it's quite possible that a staff member will be able to wear one mask for the entire day, but there may be situations where that's not possible.
Okay, next question. What resources are available to IEP students who will be learning remotely? For example, access to an education assistant.
So we will adhere to the IEP to the greatest extent possible in remote learning and try to provide the services that are available. And if an EA was available at school, we'll try our best to have that be available also, similar to what was available between March and June.
Next question, will there be limitations on supply teachers to teach only at one school? I believe this was a sick kids recommendation.
To the greatest extent possible, we'll try, but you know, if teachers, all staff are told if they're sick to stay home, and so we will need supply teachers, and it is possible that a supply teacher may be teaching at multiple schools. So we will do our best with that one, but we have a very limited supply of supply teachers, if you will, and we won't, that will be beyond our control sometimes.
Next question, will the students have access to their Chromebooks?
And as they would normally, they will have access to their Chromebooks.
Next question, if one sibling is unwell and staying home, will the other sibling at the same school be required to stay home as well if they are not sick?
Again, not necessarily, but I will defer to the health unit on those questions, and we will have that, make sure we publish that guidance from the Northwest Health Unit.
Next question, will remote learning be taped so that students and parents can access them at different times of the day? I've been asked this question a number of times.
So to the greatest extent possible, as we've experienced, and I recently experienced in a large session, the technology doesn't always work the way we'd hoped. So we will certainly try, but that may not always be possible. So an attempt will be made, but sometimes the recordings aren't available. The technology isn't foolproof, and sometimes neither are the users, and I'll just use myself as an example there, but we will certainly do our best.
All right, next question. Is it going to affect the student's grade if they do online learning versus in-person learning?
The assessment, the evaluation, and the reporting guidelines are the same. The caveat I gave is we will do our best to make online learning as good as it can be, but it is not for everyone. There's a reason why few have availed themselves of it. It is more difficult. Face-to-face learning with our excellent educational professionals is superior, but we will do our best to make it as good as it can be. So as the assessment, evaluation, and reporting guidelines are the same, but some students may find online learning more difficult than face-to-face.
Okay, next question. I have heard of staggered entry for schools to ease kids in. Are schools taking this approach?
Not on the first day, there may be some staggering as students are let in the buildings to maintain distancing, but not morning, afternoon, or the next day, no. September 3rd will be the start for all students who are attending face-to-face.
Okay, next question. Are the specialized groups for IEP children, for example, math and English, still going to happen given the cohort method?
And so we will examine, great question, thank you, and well put. Again, we will examine what can be provided without withdrawing children from class, but if the benefits outweigh, then specialized groups can still happen. And of course, distancing will be maintained as much as it can be, and masks will be certainly worn in those situations. Although 4 to 12 it's mandatory, we're encouraging JK to 3 also to wear masks to the greatest extent possible, but of course it's not mandatory for JK to 3.
All right, your next question is from Suzanne. Will there be protocols for bus dismissal at the end of the day? As it is now, kids line up in their appropriate bus lines.
So thanks, Suzanne. So similar to in the classroom, in the school, physical distancing will be maintained to the greatest extent possible. So the protocol for bus dismissal, it'll vary a bit at school to school about how it's done, but distancing and staggering that a little bit as far as who goes out at what time, we'll have as efficient as possible, but as safe as possible. So thanks for that excellent question, Suzanne.
All right, next one. Will students who receive services through agencies such as Firefly be able to receive those services at school?
So we'll be working with agencies such as Firefly and examining, can some services be done remotely and still be effective? And we will continue with that. But if there are services where the benefits outweigh the risks, then there may be some services at school that students obviously really need that can't be provided meaningfully online.
All right, Derek, I can't even tell you how many times I've been asked this question. Would it not be feasible to just stream classes so they can be part of their own classroom while at home?
That teachers will be either teaching their class at school or online teaching. It's a bit of a different medium, although if a student's in grade 4, they will follow the same expectations, but we will not be streaming classes. Some teachers may make that available in coordination, according to their professional judgment, with the online teacher, but by and large, that is not the approach that we are taking. So a teacher will either be an online teacher or an in-class face-to-face teacher.
Okay, Derek, I just want to touch base with you. You have just now processed 81 questions. We still have 32 in the queue. There's a lot of good questions yet. You've done amazing so far. Are you ready to do a few more?
Absolutely, and I appreciate the excellent questions from everyone, and I'm grateful that you're here with us. Okay,
your next question is from Michaela. Will kindergarten classes allow more than one teacher for those with special needs, such as autism, who need extra help?
Yeah, thanks, Michaela, and thanks for letting me clarify a bit. Similar to a previous question, if more than one education professional, mental health professional, physical health professional is needed, then that help will be provided remotely where we can, but if it has to be face-to-face with the layered protections, that will occur.
All right, Derek, we just spoke about this before we went live tonight. Will parents be allowed to introduce junior kindergarten students to the classroom on the first day, or will they need to be dropped off outside?
They will be, there won't be any parent visitors like that into the school, and so the handoff, not just, it won't be an isolated drop off, will occur outside the school. I know that's a tough one, but again, we're trying to mitigate risk to the greatest extent we can, while still always that balancing. And I know it's a hard one. But thank you for that good question.
Here comes Patrick, and he asks really good questions. So this one is, could you give us some clarity as to what the medical professionals are sharing with regard to the mental health, social, developmental benefits versus the risk related to possible exposure to COVID-19 by having children learn at school?
I know the Sick Kids report in general said the social, emotional, development benefits of having school outweigh the safety, the relative safety from a strictly COVID perspective. I can dig up reports with respect to that, but that was the advice of the medical professionals to our government in particular, that we should get school started up. Even though there are some risks inherent, and we're implementing all those layered approaches to mitigate those risks as much as possible. And so those again, the Sick Kids report contains that, perhaps not as specifically as you're looking for, but that is the medical advice, and that's why all provinces are certainly starting school come September.
All right, so the next question is just to add some additional clarification around cohorting in the grade 7-8 model. So the question is, what about grade 7-8? What will the cohorting look like? Will most subjects be taught by the same teacher? The cohorting question didn't clearly address the grade 8, 7-8 model.
Okay, the 7-8 model, we will follow the elementary model as closely as possible, not the high school model. So the homeroom teacher will be with those students to the greatest extent possible. There may be 1 or 2 other teachers, but we will keep it to a minimum.
Okay, next question. In some schools, there are literacy EAs that pull students from classes for reading in groups. How will this work?
Again, where we can, we're not going to be pulling students, but if it's absolutely necessary and the benefits outweigh the risks of pulling students, then it could still happen.
Next question. JK and SK is based around a play-based model. How are they expected to social distance? Will they be sent home if they don't social distance?
We will continue to remind and teach, and we are grateful for your support in reminding our students to socially distance. But we know students will forget, and we will continually be there to support them, and we are grateful for your support to continue with that messaging.
Next question. It seems really unsafe to not have kids distancing 2 meters apart, especially for kids who are not wearing masks. What are your thoughts on this, Director Haime?
Thank you very much. I do defer to our medical health professionals, because our medical health professionals do realize that distancing won't always be possible in schools. There will be instances. And so, as I mentioned, and our medical community agrees, there are some risks to having our kids at school in the full numbers with the space and the staff that we have always had. But the benefits of going to school, the consensus is that that's greater. And so those are my thoughts on this situation. And I'm not happy there's this COVID situation, but I do believe in the recommendation from our medical professionals that school can go on and we can work together to make it as safe as possible, and the overall benefits to students and families of having face-to-face school is the best thing for our students at this point.
All right, next one. Will there be additional physical barriers in place, for example, plexiglass barriers between desks to assist in limiting contact when distancing is limited?
We do not have that in classrooms. You may, at the front office, there may be that, but that will not be certainly in classrooms. We won't have plexiglass and whatnot. We'll maintain the physical distancing and engage all the other layered health and safety approaches that have been recommended by our medical officers of health.
All right, the next one is about the 40 hours of volunteer hours. What will be expected from students who have not completed their volunteer hours?
They will receive, great question, they will receive information about how to do that virtually, and so they will be able to complete their volunteer hours virtually where the face-to-face obviously isn't possible.
All right, your next one is from Courtney, and it's more of a statement. And Courtney says, to add to Dr. Haime's answer, most, if not all, post-secondary institutions will be online for the upcoming fall semester, so it might actually be an asset to have experience online.
Thank you, Courtney. That's a great comment, and I know it wasn't a question per se, but you know, I'd like to add to it. Certainly, that is true, but you know, I maintain what I said about face-to-face learning, but certainly some exposure, you know, could be helpful given that. But I certainly hope our post-secondary institutions will be able to institute face-to-face learning also, because the benefits are certainly great.
Okay, next question, also about community service hours. With the COVID situation, how does my child get volunteer hours?
So further information will be sent from the high school. I don't have those in front of me right now, but the virtual options will be provided by the high school.
Next question about French immersion. For high school French immersion, how will it work with different teachers for in-person and online learning? At the high school level, there doesn't seem that there is enough French immersion teachers for it to work.
So as we always do, we will do our absolute best with the staff we have, and we will provide, if students are in French immersion, we will provide as closely aligned as possible to the face-to-face program, a French immersion program.
All right, next question. Will the grade 7-8s have less options for exploratory courses if trying to minimize the number of teachers to a cohort?
That is certainly possible, but we will try to maintain as robust a program as we can, while again balancing the health and safety concerns that we all have.
Next question. Where will students get their final timetables?
So again, that will come directly from TA in this situation, and so further information will be coming, provided on the website or provided by other means.
All right, next question. What about textbooks, notebooks for remote learning? Will they be supplied?
And so the equipment students need for remote learning, similar to what we did from March to June, will be provided to the greatest extent possible.
Next question, near and dear to my heart. Will there be a grade 8 Toronto trip?
So right now we don't know what things will look like in June. If the trip was in September, no, there wouldn't be. But if things change and we get the advice from the health unit that can go on safely, we will certainly proceed. But as you know, we canceled trips at the end of the year, even before we were into the situation of at-home learning, and so we will have to reassess closer to that date.
All right, next question, and I think I've been asked this by my daughter on many times. What will lunchtime look like at St. Thomas Aquinas High School?
So there'll be more specific information. For example, the cafeteria, we're talking with the provider, with the Northwest Health Unit, to find out how those services can be delivered safely, how and if and what they would look like. And so that will dictate what lunchtime will look like. If students go home for lunch, they will go home for lunch and return if that's their regular practice, but we will not be encouraging students to just leave. They'll be staying at the school unless they are students who do go home for lunch.
Now, I think you've touched on this one already, but we'll do it again. What if a child is defiant on wearing a mask at the high school? How can I make them wear one, or will they be sent home? Asking for a friend. So
thanks for the asking for a friend link. I know this is really serious, but I do appreciate that kindness and that bit of levity. But certainly, again, if there's a medical reason, we'll work individually to find out how we can still be safe. If a student is just defiant, we will try to appeal to them about the necessity, because what we're teaching kids is, you wear your mask for me, I wear my mask for you. And that's really important to get across. And so we'll try to appeal, but if push comes to shove, students grade 4 to 12, they're mandatory. And so a student would have to move to the online learning mode if they weren't going to adhere to the mask wearing requirement.
Derek, you're doing awesome. You are now about to answer question number 100, and that question is, what is the best way to contact teachers? Is it via email or telephone?
And that will vary by the teacher, and you will receive that information kind of in your welcome communication from teachers. So it will vary by the teacher.
Next question. If a second wave of COVID hits and we are required to quarantine at home again, is parallel planning underway to roll out synchronous online learning?
Absolutely. So we learned a lot between March break and June, and the province required all 72 boards to develop 3 plans: to develop a full return to school, which we're engaging in, to develop a hybrid model, which we are not mandated to implement at this point, and to do a full online learning. And as I mentioned, there'll be further guidelines from the province very specific to online at-home learning that we will pass on soon. So yes, yes, absolutely. Great question. Thank you.
Next question is from Janet, and Janet asks, normal kindergarten pickup is a parent coming to the classroom. How will pickups and drop off work now?
Thanks, Janet. So that will vary by school. Some kindergarten rooms have an entrance very close to the outside, and so you will receive more detailed information from your school about how that will work. But there won't be parent pickups inside the building.
Next question. Can you talk about what the bathroom protocols will look like for students in grades 7 to 12?
So again, we will try to, great question, we will try to limit the number of students in the bathroom at any given time to the best, we'll do the best we can at that, maintain that communication, and of course the cleaning schedules will be enhanced, but you know, it's not going to be the case of one student in the bathroom and no shared bathrooms at a time, but we will stagger that. We will establish schedules to the greatest extent we can to be as safe as we can.
Next question. Will school staff have the ability to take a child's temperature when a fever is suspected?
That isn't something we would do in the past. That type of action would be more a medical process. Certainly if staff feel a student is sick, home will be contacted, but it won't necessarily involve temperature taking unless we receive direction from the Northwest Health Unit otherwise.
Next question. If a student is doing online learning but has a course like chemistry or biology, how will they do the lab components? And
thank you. Technology has come a long way. We will do our best to have simulations and whatnot online. And so again, the assessment, the evaluation, the reporting will be similar, and the expectations will be followed, including lab requirements, as closely as possible online.
Next question. Will the grade 7 students have to bring their own notebooks and binders?
That would be communication from the teacher. I don't think that will vary from regular practice.
Next question. How can kids be properly distancing in the classroom where they share tables?
So whether it's desks or tables, classrooms will be distanced as well as they can. So sitting on opposite sides of the table, opposite ends of the table, to maintain the greatest spacing we can with the space we have. Thank you.
Next question. Are the Chromebooks available for remote learning on day 1 for children that require them for IEPs?
So we will adhere to IEPs as we always do, and so that will be the regular process. So the fact that we're in a COVID situation won't change our regular processes.
Next question. Will the Northwestern Health Unit be providing immunizations and dental exams in the schools?
The Northwest Health Unit will inform us what they will provide, and it will be as past practice unless we hear otherwise from the Northwest Health Unit.
Next question. Our outdoor school drop-off time for students was 8:10 a.m. Will drop-off times change to reduce students mixing outdoors before school?
Each schools will communicate the drop-off times. We will try to keep them as same as we can, but we do ask that students be dropped off as close to the regular start as families can manage to maintain that distancing. I think you're on mute, Trina.
Do you have a transport truck going by your house, Derek?
Yes, I do.
Okay, next question. Will we be notified when online remote learning starts?
Yes, and we will endeavor to get that set up and have that started on the 3rd also.
All right, this is a really helpful statement from Carrie, and she says it may be helpful for parents to note that the Northwestern Health Unit is offering weekly virtual Q&A sessions with Dr. Kit Young Hoon. This may be a helpful forum for some of the questions around cold allergy symptoms, indications for testing, when to isolate, etc. So that was a statement from Carrie.
Thank you, Carrie, and I did mention that earlier, and I believe it's tomorrow at 1 o'clock. Dr. Kit Young-Hoon will be having the next session. If I'm incorrect, please somebody out there correct me, but thanks again, Carrie.
Alrighty, next question. Last year's grade 10 students did not write the Ontario Secondary School Literacy Test. Will they need to do it this year?
That is what I understand at this point. But we will receive more information from the ministry.
Next question. If my child needs to change a class, how will this be done remotely?
So again, the services that are available to face-to-face students, we will endeavor to provide them to online students in a similar way to the greatest extent possible, obviously using technology, but our students are our students and they will receive the services that we provide to all students, including those abilities to change classes and whatnot.
All right, next question. Given the rhetoric has changed from social distancing to physical distancing to reflect the importance of socialization, will there be a change in discourse when communicating such things to the students in order to avoid confusion? Yes,
I tried to use and not slip up, use physical distancing as much as possible, because socialization, that's one of the big reasons why we're going back to school, is because we know socialization is so important for everyone. So we will try to use that terminology, physical distancing. Absolutely, great point, thank you.
Next question, is co-op going to be allowed for students?
There may be some co-ops that can continue safely. We'll get advice from the Northwest Health Unit, but there'll also be virtual options where possible for students to earn co-op hours.
All right, next one. Thank you for holding this session. There has been a lot about remote learning, but I will be sending my child to school. She is entering grade 1. Even though masks are optional, will they still have phys ed, religion, and other subjects that might be offered?
We will be offering a full slate of courses, and of course physical education, religion, those will be offered as we usually would for your grade 1 student.
Next question, will students have to wear their masks for gym or outside recess time?
Students will be wearing their masks for gym because they're in the school for indoor gym, but if it's outside and physical distancing can be maintained, then it can be. If there's activities outside where there couldn't be reasonable physical distancing, students would be instructed to wear their masks.
All right, this next question goes with the one that was just asked. Will the students have to stay 2 meters apart when they're outside with their friends at recess?
We will encourage students to maintain physical distancing to the greatest extent they can at all times.
Next question, what about high school students who have previously had the opportunity to leave for activities and lunch, shopping, co-op classes? Will this still be allowed?
We will limit those, but again, to maintain robust programming, we will weigh that against the benefits and the risks. So there may be some of that, but we'll certainly try to, again, limit the number of contacts to the greatest extent we can while still maintaining a robust program.
Next question, can a teacher or school administrator demand a COVID test done for a child suspected of having symptoms, and will parents have the option to refuse and keep the child at school?
We're getting into the medical realm there. I don't have the authority to order medical testing, and nor does any educational employee. We would take our direction from the Northwest Health Unit, and we would enforce what the Northwest Health Unit tells us to do under the acts and statutes that they act under.
Next question, where do you find the link for the webinars with Dr. Kit's Northwestern Health Unit updates?
I imagine on the Northwest Health Unit website, but I don't know for sure, because we will certainly pass on any information they give us to pass on, but I don't have that at my fingertips.
They also have a Facebook site for the local Northwestern Health Unit as well, and I would imagine that you could find the live sessions there as well.
Thanks, Trina.
Next question, very similar to the one already asked. Will the students be able to walk to the Husky store to buy stuff?
We will not be encouraging that. If students go home for lunch, they'll be going home for lunch. Students walking to and from school, but we'll be keeping students in their cohorts during the day for the safety of everyone.
Derek, you did awesome. You have answered 123 questions, and right now there are no questions that are waiting to be answered, unless, of course, somebody wants to ask another question before we wrap up.
Well, while we're waiting for potential other questions, I will go through some of the Northwest Health Unit information again, because I know some of the questions that were asked wanted to reiterate that. So again, so the question may be, what happens if there's a positive COVID-19 test in the school? So the Northwestern Health Unit will contact the positive case and gather details about their contacts. A contact is defined as someone who has spent at least 15 minutes within 2 meters of a confirmed case. The Northwest Health Unit will direct the positive case to self-isolate and not return to school until they are no longer able to spread the virus, cleared by the Northwest Health Unit to return. The Northwest Health Unit is responsible for completing contact tracing for each positive case. Contact tracing is the process of identifying, assessing, and managing people who have been exposed to a disease to prevent further transmission. If a school-level contact tracing is required, the Northwestern Health Unit will contact the school principal for additional details about contacts and to advise the school on enhanced cleaning measures. The Northwest Health Unit will connect with everyone identified as a contact and will provide each with directions. So that's where I know some of the questions ask for definitive answers if you have a positive case at home. So this is the key. The Northwest Health Unit will connect with everyone identified as a contact and will provide each with directions. So the school principal is responsible for alerting the Northwest Health Unit if someone is absent from school due to a reportable disease, including COVID-19. Notifying the Northwest Health Unit when greater than 10% of the school community is absent from school. And this is extremely helpful in early detection and management of infectious diseases, including COVID-19. Maintaining a system to quickly and accurately collate the contacts of a positive case for in a time span directed by the Northwest Health Unit. And so we'll be using our student information systems to provide that information. Providing information to the Northwest Health Unit upon request, including the names and contact information for anyone who the student has come into contact with the case. We would be, the principal is responsible for excluding anyone with any symptoms of illness independent of COVID-19 test results from entering or attending school. And so that's as directed by the Northwest Health Unit. And so, of course, there is a communicable disease reporting procedure, and that's on the Northwest Health Unit for schools, and that's on the Northwest Health Unit website. Exclusion from school, so the Northwest Health Unit will notify who has to be excluded from school should there be that need. And school closures, although we did go through them, but the Northwest Health Unit will work with the school and board in collaboration to determine if a closure is necessary to control the spread of disease. So there's many factors that are considered. Those are, I wanted to reiterate some of those. So anyways, I know Dr. Kit Young-Hoon and the other excellent staff at our local health unit are available to answer further questions, and we will be, as we always do, passing on the information from the Northwest Health Unit, posting screening information, doing everything we can to help keep families informed so everybody can stay as safe as possible. So anyways, Trina, I don't know, I just had to jump off my screen, so I guess there's another question. So
you got all kinds of questions.
Okay.
So all kinds of questions. So the first one is from our lovely Carrie, and she is sharing that the virtual sessions for the Northwestern Health Unit are available on their website. And then Carrie shares the link, so I'm going to publish that now so that everybody has that. Next question, Derek, is where will the grade 7s have to put their bags if they don't get a locker?
So that will be arranged with their classroom teacher, so they'll receive further information from the school about those specifics.
Next question, will there be an increased investment in outdoor learning spaces?
We have limited funding, and so you know, at the request of teachers, we will try to do what we can to encourage outdoor learning where it's possible. But the monies that were given, the 309 million for all 72 boards, is especially since we're hiring additional custodians, that was a real priority. And that's money we have to use to buy masks, which isn't something that education was responsible for in the past because we didn't need masks, and additional cleaning supplies and whatnot. So there's not a lot of additional funding for such things, but if there is the need, we'll try to be creative to provide that, because we do want to encourage outdoor learning where we can.
Alrighty, next question. It starts with, thank you so much for answering all of these questions. If students are taking off their masks while at recess, will there be a standard procedure in place to ensure that their hands are washed and masks are put back on as they re-enter the school? Currently, students flood in a pile while often won't even take their hats off. So this seems like a very hectic time that potentially defeats the purpose of masks while in the school.
And so, you know, great question and great scenario. You know what you're talking about, obviously, as all 126 questions have indicated. Very savvy group, and I am grateful for these questions and the ability to do my best to answer them as unsatisfactorily as I might have done sometimes, but we'll do our best to shore that up where I've come short. But certainly we will continue to try to get the best procedures in place possible. We know they won't always work as designed, but we'll always be returning to them. So if physical distancing isn't being adhered to, we will reestablish, so we can reestablish the proper physical distancing. If a student has their mask off when they should have it on, we will get it on them, and we will endeavor not to have students flood in a pile, have an ordered entry into school, as we always try to do, to maintain distancing. And we will continue to work with students students do care about one another, and I know students will be doing their best, but as with all of us, we won't always be doing the right thing. We'll make mistakes, and we will protecting everyone's dignity. We will correct those mistakes and try to continue doing all the procedures in the best way possible to maintain safety. So, you know, we know. Yeah, just as I gave with the fire drill example, we practice fire drills just so, and then when an actual fire does happen, God forbid, then we try to get as close to that practice as we can, but we've always observed that it never happens as designed. And so we know that will be the case to some extent here, but we will always return to the recommended practices and try to, and always be consistent in the messaging, and encouraging everybody and helping everybody be as consistent as possible in the practice, because the more we do these practices, the safer we'll be. So that, again, great question, and thanks for the thanks.
Alrighty, so the last one here is a statement of kindness, and the person says, thank you for having this session, as it was very helpful and answered many of my questions. Thank you, Dr. Derek Haime.
My absolute pleasure. Again, I'm grateful for your time, and if you need to email me, you need to phone me. I've been communicating with a number of parents, staff, community members over the whole summer. I don't think there's been a day gone by I haven't received a call with some great questions and great discussions. This is, you know, this whole COVID situation is not anything anybody ever wanted, obviously, and we're all, you're doing your students, our students are doing their absolute best, and we're doing our best to support each other. But we know through the grace of God, through the mercy we have of God, that things are going to work out okay. But we know that it pleases God immeasurably when we do our best to do the right things for each other, and we will continue to do that together. And we are so grateful for our Northwest Health Unit, for all the medical professionals, for our government who are doing their best to try to enable us to keep safe in this really awful situation the world is in. And so thank you, and we're always open to criticism. And thanks Lee, thanks others for the thank yous. We really do appreciate that, but we will try to be as perfect as we can be, and when we fall short, again, we welcome your questions and your criticisms and your concerns, and we will always try to be better, and obviously always try to be safer.
Alrighty, so the next sentiment comes from our chair, Teresa Gallick, and she says, thank you, Trina and Derek, for this informative Q&A session. There are so many questions at this very stressful time. We all want the best for everyone's children. Please know, as a Board of Trustees, we have a great concern for your students' safety and education.
Thank you, Chair Gallick. We sure appreciate that. And I just wanted to add, I certainly answered the questions to the best of my ability at this time. Information may change even over the next couple of weeks, and certainly through the school year, and we will be, very diligent and listening for and receiving that and acting on that information. And if if any of the Northwest Health Unit, you're out there and you cringed at my answers for some questions, please do correct me, and we will broadcast the correct answers and updated information. If there are other professionals or people with information you feel I could have improved on some of these answers, I'm always wanting to learn and welcome that opportunity. So I see there's no questions. I'd like to offer my blessings, best wishes, and gratitude to all of you. I'm really looking forward to seeing our students at a distance, obviously, in a safe way. I really do believe this is good that we're going back to school. But at the same time, I respect the fact if parents feel that it's better to engage in the online learning option, and rest assured we will do our best to ensure that online option is as good as it can be, as we always try to ensure that our face-to-face option as we can be. I'm very proud of our students. I'm very proud of our families, if you'd allow me that. Not meaning to be disrespectful or presumptuous in any way, and I'm certainly very, very proud of our staff. Our staff continue to work hard to apply their ingenuity and creativity in consultation with the great suggestions from students and parents to try to make this situation as good as it can be. And we'll continue to do that. We have 2 good weeks to try to refine and make our September 3rd return as good as it can be. There's now 3 PD days at the start where staff will be engaging in a variety of training and information receiving, so they can again balance the safety with delivering the best education program that's possible. So again, thank you. Thank you, Trina. You're such a pro at this and at all other aspects. I'm so grateful for you taking the time to do this for us. And again, thank you to all of you, students, parents, family members, community members, staff, other folks that have engaged. And again, if there's any follow-up from this session, I'm pleased to receive that communication. So I see there's no more questions. God bless you all. I'm going to sign off now, or Trina's going to sign us off this live session. And I do look forward to seeing you face to face, albeit probably behind a mask and at a distance. Take care, everybody. God bless.